Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into perhaps the most iconic and deeply unsettling alleged alien encounter ever reported, the Betty and Barney Hill incident.
Absolutely. For many people, this isn't just a story in UFO lore.
No, it's the story. It fundamentally etched the concept of alien abduction into our collective consciousness.
It really did. It was the first time such an intimate, frankly terrifying experience got widespread global attention.
Exactly. And it shifted the whole narrative, didn't it? From just distant sightings of weird lights or objects
To direct personal encounters with, well, beings from somewhere else.
So let's set the scene. Imagine this. It's the evening of September 19th, 1961. We're in New Hampshire, remote, forested, mountainous area.
Very isolated.
And the sky is remarkably clear, almost too clear,
Yeah.
despite warnings about a hurricane further down the coast.
Right, an odd detail.
There are no other cars on this highway. Just Betty and Barney Hill, a couple driving home from a spontaneous vacation in Canada. Their dog, Deli, is with them.
Long drive. Late at night.
Our mission in this deep dive isn't just to recount what they said happened. We want to dissect the elements that made this case so groundbreaking and, frankly, so controversial.
We need to look at the incident itself, obviously, but also the investigations, the debates.
And why this very personal story became such a defining moment in how we talk about extraterrestrial contact.
And what's really key here, I think, is how this case went beyond just seeing strange craft.
Yeah, the interaction part.
Exactly. It introduced this public idea of interacting with beings. Before the Hills, most reports were lights, maybe disc shapes, strange maneuvers.
Distant phenomena.
Right. But their account, once it finally came out, gave a face, you could say, to who or what might be inside those objects.
It basically created the template, didn't it, for so many abduction stories that followed.
It really did. That image, the sequence of events, it's still deeply embedded in pop culture. Its foundational impact is just huge.
Okay, so let's unpack that night. It all kicked off around 10:40 p.m.
Late evening.
Betty Hill, who seems to have been the more observant one initially.
Or perhaps just quicker to consider the unusual.
Maybe. She spots this bright light, southwest sky, near the moon and Jupiter, she thought. But it wasn't acting like a star or a planet.
How so?
It was moving, and weirdly, it was moving upward, not like a shooting star falling down.
Okay, that's odd.
Barney, meanwhile, he's the pragmatist here. His first thought, probably a satellite off course, or maybe some new kind of military aircraft, trying to find a normal explanation.
Makes sense. That's what most people would do.
But as they kept driving, this thing got larger, brighter.
So it wasn't just a distant light anymore.
No. And their curiosity, which was probably mixed with a bit of unease by now,
I imagine so.
it made them stop. Multiple times, actually. They got out binoculars, 7x50s, to get a better look.
Trying to figure it out.
Barney kept insisting it must be a plane or maybe a helicopter, but his own certainty was fading.
Why? What was convincing him otherwise?
The movement was just too erratic, nothing like a conventional aircraft. And the biggest thing, it was completely silent. No engine noise at all.
Ah, the silence. That's a classic element in many UFO reports.
Betty, though, she jumped there quicker. She immediately thought, flying saucer.
Did she have a background in this stuff?
Not really an interest herself, but she'd heard the term. And crucially, her sister had claimed to have seen UFOs twice just a few years before.
Okay, so there's a family connection, a sort of predisposition to consider it, maybe?
Possibly. It makes the unbelievable feel a bit closer, perhaps. Anyway, as they watched, the object passed the moon.
Giving them a silhouette.
Exactly. And they saw it was wingless, sort of cigar-shaped, with flashing lights red, amber, blue, green.
That initial dynamic between them, Betty's quick suspicion and Barney's, well, stubborn denial. It's actually quite interesting from a testimony perspective.
How do you mean?
Well, Barney's resistance, his initial skepticism, even while he's privately getting more confused, it almost makes their later claims seem more compelling in a strange way.
Because he wasn't predisposed to believe.
Right. If even the skeptic eventually recalls these extraordinary events, it makes you wonder about the power of the experience itself. Or maybe the mind, trying to process something traumatic.
That makes sense.
And you see this gradual buildup of strangeness. It starts as just a light, then it's clearly an object, then it seems to be following them.
Breaking down all the rational explanations one by one.
Exactly. And then that feeling creeps in that they're being watched. That's a very primal, unsettling feeling.
And the dog, Deli, started whining, like she was scared.
Animals reacting is another common thread in these kinds of accounts. It adds this non-human validation, this eerie sense that something is deeply wrong.
Yeah, no wonder Barney felt he needed to get his .32 pistol out of the trunk. The atmosphere must have been incredibly tense.
Palpable tension, absolutely.
And it just kept escalating. They saw this light on Cannon Mountain suddenly blink out as the object flew behind it.
Like it passed in front of it.
Or maybe flew behind the mountain itself. Then the object reappeared, near the Old Man of the Mountain rock formation, still heading in the same direction as their car. Basically, following them.
Relentless.
They even passed a motel. A chance for safety, maybe? But they decided to keep going. Deeper into the darkness, the isolation.
A decision they probably regretted later.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Because that's when things got really close. Frighteningly close.
How close?
Just a few hundred feet up, right in front of them. Betty, looking through the binoculars, sees this huge wingless craft, 2 rows of windows, then red lights appear on the sides.
Wow.
She urged Barney to stop the car, and he did. Right there, middle of the road, near a place called Indian Head, he gets out.
To confront it?
Maybe just to get a better look, maybe defiance, who knows. The object swings towards them, settles maybe a city block away, 2 treetops high, hovering, completely silent.
Silent is key.
Barney described it like a large glowing pancake, bigger than a jet airliner, he thought.
That's huge.
Then it moves. A perfect silent arc across the road. Stops over a field to his left. He can see details now. Windows wrapping around. 2 fin-like things sticking out the sides with red lights on the tips.
And he's just standing there.
He starts walking towards it. Betty's yelling at him from the car, but he doesn't seem to hear her. He noticed something else weird, too.
What was that?
Despite the craft growing brilliantly, no light was hitting the ground underneath it.
Strange, like the light wasn't interacting normally.
Right. And then he looks through the binoculars again. Towards the windows, he sees figures. About 10 of them, he estimated, staring back at him.
Figures? Like people?
Humanoid, he said, but definitely not human. Wearing glossy black uniforms, black caps.
Oh, wow. Okay, this is the turning point.
Absolutely. Then, almost all at once, most of the figures turn away from the windows, move towards what looked like a control panel, started manipulating levers.
Like they were preparing something.
Exactly. The craft moves closer, the fins extend out more, and a structure, like a ladder or ramp, starts lowering down.
Oh.
Barney's conscious memory gets really fuzzy here, but under hypnosis later, he recalled the eyes of the one figure still at the window. The leader, he assumed. Slanted eyes, staring intensely.
Hypnosis. We'll get to that.
Yeah. He felt this intense concentration from the leader, like a telepathic message. Stay there. Stay where you are and keep looking.
Telepathy.
That's how he interpreted it. Pure terror hits him. He rips the binoculars away from his face so hard he tears the strap,
Adrenaline.
runs back to the car, screaming at Betty, "They're gonna capture us!" Jumps in, slams it into gear, and drives off hysterically.
Okay, so that immediate aftermath, that's where the timeline starts to warp, isn't it?
Completely. As Barney is speeding away, totally panicked, Betty looks out the window. The object's gone. But she realizes she can't see any stars. The sky is just black.
No stars. That's incredibly strange. Atmospheric effect? Or something else?
Who knows? Then they both hear it. These weird, irregular beeping noises. Like a tuning fork, they said. Seem to be coming from the trunk of the car?
Beeping. From the trunk.
Yeah. And with each beep, the car vibrates. And they feel this tingling sensation all over their bodies. And this weird drowsiness, like their awareness is getting dull.
Drugged. Hypnotized.
Yeah.
Some kind of field effect.
Unclear. Then, moments later, they don't know how long a second set of beeps.
The same sound.
Apparently. And their awareness starts coming back, but it's foggy. Barney's still driving. They're quiet for a bit, just trying to process. Where are we?
And they figure it out.
Yeah, soon they realize they're near Ashland, which is about 35 miles south of where that close encounter near Indian Head happened.
35 miles.
With almost no memory of driving it.
The missing time.
That's it. Their consciousness really only fully returns when they hit State Route 93. Still groggy, disturbed. They barely talk the rest of the way home. Just sort of agree, quietly, not to tell anyone what happened.
Trying to pretend it didn't happen.
Maybe. The craft is gone. They get home around 5:00 a.m., which is hours later than they should have been.
Much later.
And the moment they walk in the door, the weirdness continues. They both feel wrong. Disturbed, strange, uncomfortable, but they can't pin it down.
A general malaise.
Their watches. Both stopped. At the same time, presumably. Never worked again.
Electromagnetic pulse. Or just coincidence.
The binocular strap, the one Barney ripped, It's broken, just like he remembered, sort of. Betty gets this weird compulsion. She has to leave their luggage outside, has to throw away the food they brought back.
Oddly specific compulsions.
Yeah.
Almost ritualistic.
And her dress, she got it new for the trip. Now it's torn in several places, has some weird stain on it. She just puts it away, doesn't look at it for 3 years.
The dress becomes important later, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely. Barney notices his good shoes are scuffed up on the tops, and he has this bizarre urge to check his groin area, but he doesn't know why.
Another detail that comes back later under hypnosis.
Right. They try to piece together the drive, but that 35-mile stretch between the beeps, almost a total blank.
Just fragments?
Betty vaguely remembers Barney making a sharp turn off the main road somewhere. Barney has a fleeting image of some kind of roadblock, and they both have this shared hazy memory of seeing a large, luminous moon shape sitting on end underneath some pines.
A moon shape, but not the moon itself.
Doesn't sound like it. Beyond that, nothing. They go to bed, exhausted, confused, but when they wake up, it hits them again.
Can't just sleep it off.
No. Betty, driven by curiosity, breaks their pact of silence, calls her sister immediately.
And Barney?
He goes into denial mode, wants to forget the whole thing, just push it away.
Sure.
But that blank spot, that missing time, it's the elephant in the room, the undeniable core of the mystery that drives everything else. So they've got these weird physical traces, this huge memory gap. What do they do next?
Well, Betty's sister talks to a physicist friend. He suggests maybe checking the car for radiation with a compass. Kind of long shot, but...
But Betty tries it.
Yeah. She goes out to the car and finds these spots in the trunk. Over a dozen of them, shiny, circular, about $half size, like someone polished just those areas.
And that's where the beeping came from.
Exactly where she thought the beeping originated. And sure enough, she puts the compass on those spots.
And it goes crazy.
It reacts abnormally. Needle twitching, spinning. But it behaves normally on other parts of the car.
Okay, so that's something, not proof, but anomalous.
Their first tangible piece of potential evidence, yeah. Then, friends suggest they report it officially.
To the Air Force. Project Blue Book was active then, right?
Exactly. There was a nearby base taking reports. So they go, but they deliberately leave out the really weird stuff.
Like the figures, the capture fears.
Probably. Trying not to sound like, quote, lunatics. But the officer who took the report was interested and passed it up the chain to Blue Book investigators.
Did Blue Book do much with it?
We don't know specifics of their initial reaction, but it was logged. After reporting it, the Hills did something interesting.
What's that?
They went into separate rooms and drew sketches of the craft and the sequence of events as they remembered it then.
To avoid influencing each other.
Presumably. And the sketches turned out to be remarkably similar.
Consistent accounts, even visually.
Yeah.
Then comes Betty's dreams, right?
Yeah, about 10 days after the incident. For 5 or 6 nights straight, she has these incredibly intense, realistic dreams about being taken aboard the craft and examined.
Just dreams. Or something else.
Well, a coworker suggested they might be repressed memories trying to surface. That convinced Betty to write them all down in detail. A really crucial step, as it turned out.
And Barney, still trying to forget it.
Deeply uncomfortable. Still in denial. But Betty couldn't let it go. She started researching UFOs, found out about Nullicap.
The National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, a civilian group.
Right. More independent than the Air Force. She contacts them.
And ICAP takes it seriously.
Very. They sent Walter Webb, a science advisor and planetarium lecturer, to interview them in October '61.
Was he a believer?
Open-minded, but skeptical. He grilled them for over 6 hours, trying to find inconsistencies, trying to trip them up. He found their story ironclad. Totally consistent. A month later, another group, Robert Hammond, C.D. Jackson, and Air Force Major James McDonald, interviewed them.
Another long interview.
11 hours this time. Same conclusion. Incredibly consistent. Deeply fascinating.
Wow. But it's during these intense interviews that the missing time really becomes the central issue, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's the major inconsistency they flagged. Barney himself estimated the drive was under 4 hours. Colebrook Diner around 10 p.m. Home by 2 or 3 a.m. latest.
But they arrived at 5 a.m.
Exactly. 2, maybe 3 hours, completely unaccounted for. The Hills knew they'd lost time, but it was during this focused questioning they realized just how much time. It became the absolute focus.
And that's when hypnosis comes up.
Major McDonald suggested it. Medical hypnosis to try and retrieve those lost memories.
Were they willing? Even Barney?
Surprisingly, yes. They felt these investigators were taking them seriously, and they desperately wanted answers. Barney's denial was cracking under the weight of the mystery and his own ongoing anxiety.
But they didn't do it right away.
No, a consulting psychiatrist advised against it initially, worried it might be harmful, might cause more trauma.
So what did they do in the meantime?
They tried revisiting the locations, drove the route again, went back to Indian Head, hoped something would jog their memory.
Did it work?
Not really. Yielded very little. They started sharing the story more openly with friends, their church group, still avoiding major publicity, though.
And Barney's condition.
He was really suffering. What we'd likely call PTSD today. Anxiety, physical symptoms. That missing time was a heavy burden.
So finally, after more than 2 years of this unresolved trauma and anxiety, they seek out Dr. Simon.
Dr. Benjamin Simon.
Yeah.
December 1963. He was a big name in psychiatry and, importantly, an expert in hypnosis.
Was he interested in the UFO angle?
Not at all. His interest was purely clinical. He saw two people suffering profound anxiety linked to a specific event, and his goal was to relieve that anxiety. He was totally neutral on whether aliens were involved.
Or the purely psychological approach?
Yes. The hypnosis sessions began February 22nd, 1964, every Saturday until late June.
And the method was key, right? Hypnotizing them separately.
It's absolutely crucial. Always one at a time, the other not present. And Simon gave them post-hypnotic suggestions not to consciously remember the session afterwards unless he specifically told them they could.
Why do that?
To prevent them influencing each other's recall between sessions. And it allowed him to gauge the raw emotional impact of the memories as they surfaced before they could intellectualize or discuss them together.
Smart. And these sessions were recorded.
11 hours of audio tape. And this is the material that made the Betty and Barney Hill case explode into public awareness. This is where the abduction narrative really takes shape.
Okay, so what came out under hypnosis? Let's start with Barney. His memory was fuzzy after Indian Head.
Right. Under hypnosis, it sharpened considerably. He described the beings in the windows, again, dark uniforms, maybe scarves. One smiled, he thought, based on the eyes.
The leader figure.
Yes, wearing a shiny black jacket. Barney felt profoundly affected by the leader's eyes, even when not looking directly at him. And that telepathic communication.
The voice in his head.
Exactly. Telling him to stay there and keep looking. That's what he believed made him rip off the binoculars and run.
Okay, and the part after they drove away. The blank period.
This was incredibly traumatic for both of them to relive under hypnosis. Lots of emotion, crying, yelling, panic. Barney recalled that after the first beeps, he suddenly braked, turned off Route 3, drove down some side roads into the woods.
Why? Did he know why?
He didn't consciously know, but attributed it to that voice in his head again. This matches Betty's vague conscious memory of a sharp turn.
And then?
They saw a great orange glow up ahead in the woods, and standing in the road, figures. 6 to 12 of them, in dark uniforms.
Blocking the road.
Essentially. The cars stalled. The figures approached. Betty wanted to run, but they both felt dazed, drowsy like the feeling during hypnosis, they later said. Barney felt weak.
And the figures?
Opened the car doors. Started escorting them towards the ship down a path. Betty walked. Barney kept his eyes closed mostly. Felt encouraged, too, by the leader. He thought he was carried, feet dragging.
Which explains the scuffed shoes.
That's the connection he made, yes. He had no memory of what happened to Betty during that walk to the ship.
And Betty's recall of that part.
Much clearer. She remembered being angry, calling out to Barney, who looked dazed, almost sleepwalking.
Did the beings react?
One near her asked, "Barney, is that his name?" She didn't answer. Then the same being told her not to be afraid. They were just doing some tests. She'd be returned safely. She described him as businesslike, with an accent she couldn't place.
An accent. Interesting. So what did these beings look like based on the hypnosis?
Okay, pooling their descriptions. Short, 5 feet max. Skin was gray, almost metallic looking. Betty thought the leader might be different. Barney thought they were all the same.
Body shape.
Disproportionate. Large chests, slender hips. Heads were large, pear-shaped almost, tapering to a small chin. Slanted eyes, bigger than human, with pupils. Betty mentioned cat's eyes, vaguely.
Hair.
No hair recalled. Barney mentioned a black cap just on the leader. Clothing was a bit contradictory. Black uniforms outside, but maybe light shirts inside. Barney saw the leader in a black leathery jacket. Mouths were thin, lipless, hard to recall clearly. How did they communicate with each other? Just unintelligible sounds. Barney called it a mum-mum-mum sound, but meaning was conveyed somehow.
All right, so they're escorted onto the craft. What happens inside?
They go up a ramp. Betty remembered trying to resist, kicking, maybe tearing her dress more than being told her to stop wasting time.
What was the interior like?
Blue fluorescent light, but oddly, no shadows. A long hallway seemed to curve around the inside, with rooms off it. They were taken to separate rooms.
Okay, Barney's examination first. Still vague.
Still quite vague, eyes closed a lot. Taken into a pie-shaped room, put on a metallic table. Walls were smooth, sky blue, very clean. Room was mostly empty. 3 beings present, one interacting.
What did they do?
Examined his body, ran hands up his back, opened his mouth, scratched his arm with a stick-like object, and then placed a cup-like device around his groin. The groin examination links to his later warts.
That's the implication, yes. But his memory of it was fragmented.
And Betty's exam. More detail, much more detail. Led to a different room, sat on a metallic stool, multiple beings, including the speaker and the examiner.
What kind of tests?
They took samples. Skin scrapings, earwax, hair, fingernails, put them in little plastic or cellophane bags into a drawer. They talked amongst themselves in that mum way.
Okay, standard sample collection almost. Then what?
They told her they wanted to check her nervous system. Undressed her, struggled with the zipper, maybe tearing the dress again, laid her on a table.
And the nervous system test?
Used a device like a cluster of needles with wires, placed it gently all over her body, even she felt, inside her head.
Then the most famous part of her exam.
The needle. The examiner came over with a long needle, maybe 5 inches, attached to a tube, said it was a simple pregnancy test.
And inserted it.
Into her navel. She screamed out in pain. The leader immediately came over, put his hand over her eyes, and the pain just stopped instantly.
Wow. Did he say anything?
Apologized. Said they wouldn't have done it if they'd known it would hurt her. After that, the exam was over. They helped her sit up, get dressed.
But the interaction wasn't over.
Not at all. The others left, but Betty started talking to the leader. She felt more comfortable now, less afraid.
What did they talk about?
She asked for proof, something to take back. He suggested she look around. She found a large book on a cabinet.
A book? What was it like?
Filled with strange writing. Sharp lines, curves, dots, vertical columns. Totally unfamiliar. She asked if she could take it. He said yes.
Then the star map conversation?
Yes. She asked where he was from. He pulled out this oblong map, covered in dots of different sizes, connected by lines.
Did he explain it?
Said the dots were stars or planets. Heavy lines were trade routes, lighter lines, places they occasionally went. Broken lines, expeditions.
Did he show her his home?
She asked. But he responded by asking her where Earth was on the map. She couldn't tell him. So he said, basically, if you don't know where you are, there's no point telling you where I'm from.
That's cryptic. And kind of logical, in an alien way.
Very. Then the others came back in, holding Barney's dentures.
They were confused by dentures.
Utterly baffled why his teeth came out and hers didn't. Betty had to explain false teeth, injury, aging.
Which led to more questions.
A whole stream of them. What is older? What is age? How long is time? She mentioned years. What are years? She mentioned food. What are vegetables? What is squash? What is yellow?
It's bizarre. Advanced enough for interstellar travel, but not understanding basic concepts like color or time.
That's one of the big contradictions people point out. Eventually, Betty got frustrated, said she couldn't explain everything, offered to introduce them to experts if they came back.
And the examiner's response?
Laughed and said, "We always find those we want to." Chilling, really. So after all that, it's time to leave. Seems so. Barney, eyes still closed, is brought back. Reunited with Betty. The beings tell Betty they can go, walk them halfway to the car.
How long were they inside, did they think?
They estimated 30 to 40 minutes. Felt a rush of air, a temperature change as they exited.
Did Betty get to keep the book?
No. Right before they parted, the leader took it back. Betty was furious, argued, but he said the others didn't want her to have proof or remember.
He admitted she might remember anywhere.
Yeah, conceded it was possible, but said it would be better if they did forget.
Okay, so they get back near the car.
The leader suggests Betty watch them leave. Barney gets in the car first, finds Deli the dog trembling under the seat. Betty gets him to come watch with her.
Had Barney forgotten everything already?
Completely blanked by this point, apparently. Had no idea why Betty wanted him to watch. But they both see the object become a glowing orange ball, get brighter, then shoot off and vanish in seconds.
And this became their conscious memory of...
the luminous moon shape leaving the sky, the one they vaguely remembered.
What did they feel right after it left?
Strange. Great happiness, elation, they both said. Doesn't quite fit with the terror, does it? No, it's another odd emotional beat.
Barney starts the car, drives back towards Route 3. Then they hear the second set of beeps.
And their conscious memory clicks back in. back to the point where their earlier narrative picked up,
With all those lingering anomalies, Barney's urged to check his groin.
which he forgot the reason for by the time he got home. But then, 4 months later, that perfect circle of warts appears, gets inflamed again during the Simon interviews, verified by a dermatologist.
So Dr. Simon has all this on tape by April 64. What happens next?
He starts letting them consciously remember the hypnosis sessions, lets them listen to the tapes.
How did they react to hearing themselves?
A huge range of emotions, they said. But overwhelmingly, it felt like chains being lifted. A massive relief, even with the disturbing content.
What was Simon's final conclusion?
He was really struck by the consistency between their separate accounts. He absolutely did not think it was a hoax. He didn't think they were mentally ill.
But he didn't believe the abduction was real.
No. He leaned towards his hypothesis. It stemmed from Betty's vivid dreams 10 days after the sighting. Dreams she wrote down, became convinced were real.
And Barney.
Simon thought Barney was suggestible, picked up details from Betty consciously or unconsciously, and hypnosis then cemented these false memories for both of them.
Did Simon acknowledge problems with that theory?
He did. He admitted it didn't fully explain everything, especially the pre-dream conscious memories and the lost time.
How did the Hills react to his conclusion?
They acknowledged it was possible. They mistook dreams for reality, but they didn't really buy it. Betty was adamant it was real. Barney kind of wavered, but mostly felt something real happened. He even made efforts not to be influenced by Betty.
So the therapy ends, anxiety reduced, but the mystery unsolved.
Pretty much. Simon felt he'd done his job therapeutically. Hypnosis couldn't prove or disprove the core event. The Hills tried to get back to normal, but it was impossible to forget.
And Simon later went public saying it was fantasy.
Yes. On national TV, he stated quite clearly he believed the abduction did not happen, which must have been difficult for the Hills.
Yeah. But let's look at the challenges to Simon's dream idea, because they are significant.
Right. First, those conscious memories before the dreams. The close-up craft, the figures, the vague roadblock memory, the moon leaving. Where did those come from if it was all just filling a gap later?
And the missing time itself. Dreams don't explain losing 2 or 3 hours and 35 miles of driving.
Exactly. Second, the separate recollections. Barney recalled things Betty didn't witness, and vice versa. If Betty's dream was the source, how did Barney generate consistent details for events where she wasn't present?
Like his solo examination.
Precisely. Walter Webb called it puzzle pieces, fitting together from their individual perspective.
And their personalities. Maybe Barney's vagueness and Betty's detail aren't proof of influence, but just how they reacted differently.
It's certainly plausible. If it was real, you'd expect the one trying to block it out, Barney, to have fuzzier recall than the one trying desperately to remember, Betty.
Then there's the physical evidence again. The dress.
The pink powder. Analyzed by 5 labs. Biological. Anomalous. Not from them. Never identified. That's hard to dismiss easily.
The watches, the warts. Maybe not definitive proof, but they align with the story. Barney's warts were medically verified.
And the car spots, the compass reaction. Small things, but they add up to a picture that's more complex than just it was a dream.
Okay, let's bring in the skeptics more directly. Robert Schaefer's book in 1980 really stirred the pot.
It did. He pointed out major timeline inconsistencies in the early reports, sometimes saying the sighting was after midnight, even 3 a.m. in one interview snippet.
Which undermines the crucial missing 2 hours calculation.
Significantly. If they didn't even have a firm start time, locked down early on, the whole lost time element becomes much fuzzier. Memory is malleable.
And James McDonald, the researcher who retraced their route.
He argued they probably drove slower than they thought, underestimated the time. He also proposed mundane explanations for the lights.
The aircraft beacon on Cannon Mountain.
Yeah, saying through binoculars it could look like a craft, maybe lighting up a tower. And he suggested maybe lights from a closed restaurant or even a resort billboard could be the orange moon shape.
But the Hills accounted for some lights, didn't they? And saw a moving craft with figures before the lost time.
Right. That's the tension. Could mundane lights trigger such a complex, detailed fantasy? Or were those lights just incidental to a genuinely strange event already unfolding?
A huge point of contention is Betty's credibility later in life.
Yes, this is undeniable. After Barney died in '69, Betty became a prominent figure in the UFO community. But her claims escalated dramatically.
Hundreds of sightings, UFO hotspots.
Exactly. Claiming UFOs chased her, shot lasers at her car, landed and did calisthenics. Things that strained credulity, even among believers.
And researchers who went with her saw her misidentifying ordinary things.
Often, yes. Labeling streetlights as ships. It led many who initially believed her original story to sadly alert face in her judgment.
The conference where she was basically laughed off stage.
It's a tough part of the story, but relevant. The core Hill case rests heavily on them being seen as credible, down-to-earth witnesses. Betty's later behavior casts a shadow back on that initial assessment, fairly or unfairly.
Though her niece notes she did become frustrated with the community's lack of skepticism later on.
True, a complex picture. But it raises the question, was that tendency for, let's say, imaginative interpretation always there, even in '61?
These criticisms focus heavily on Betty. What about Barney?
It's true, most of the later credibility issues are Betty's. But Barney wasn't immune to psychological factors. His known anxiety, his depression, these can affect perception.
So his reluctance might not have been skepticism, but anxiety avoidance.
It's possible. His wavering belief could stem from a subconscious awareness that the memories weren't entirely real. We can't know for sure. He had no known history of reacting to stress quite like this, but nobody's a perfect witness.
MacDonald also brought up sleep deprivation, driving 21 hours.
Definitely a factor to consider. Exhaustion plays tricks on the mind. He suggested the lost 35 miles were just monotonous countryside, easily forgotten by a tired driver.
But the Hills insisted they weren't drowsy.
They were adamant. And again, does simple drowsiness explain the detailed abduction narrative recalled under hypnosis? It seems like a stretch.
And the physical evidence, like the dress powder.
That remains one of the most stubborn, unexplained pieces. While much of the other physical evidence wasn't rigorously documented, the dress analysis by multiple labs finding an unknown biological substance is intriguing.
Let's touch on the star map quickly. That caused a huge stir.
Betty's map, drawn from memory. Marjorie Fish, the teacher, spent years trying to match it to real stars. Her proposed solution in '68, identifying Zeta Reticuli as the home base, was massive news.
Seemed like scientific proof.
For a while. But Carl Sagan showed the pattern match was weak without the connecting lines. Others found different star patterns that fit just as well or better.
And then science itself caught up.
Exactly. New data in the '90s showed some stars Fish used were way further away than known in the '60s. Her model didn't work anymore, and she honorably retracted it.
So the star map ended up being a dead end, a case of pattern seeking.
Seems likely. A fascinating example of trying to find meaning and confirmation in ambiguous data.
So after all this, where do we stand? 60 years on, it's still maybe the most debated UFO case.
It really is. The possibility it happened, as described, it lingers. Because while the counterarguments are strong, plausible alternatives exist for many parts.
But not necessarily all parts.
Right. Some elements, like the dress powder, the sheer consistency under separate hypnosis, the initial conscious fragments before the dreams, they lack fully satisfying counter-explanations for some.
Consistency isn't truth, though. And unproven isn't untrue.
Precisely. It's limited. 2 witnesses. Evidence mostly subjective, vague. Betty's later issues. Contradictions within the narrative itself, like the aliens' knowledge gaps.
But the impact is undeniable.
Absolutely. Real or not, the story changed everything. It opened the floodgates for thousands of abduction accounts. It cemented the image of the Greys.
So it's either a cornerstone of American UFO mythology born from trauma and culture,
Or it's one of the first documented glimpses suggesting we're not alone and that visits might be happening.
the Betty and Barney Hill deep dive really forces you to grapple with memory, perception, belief, and the limits of what we can actually know.
It truly does. Whether you see it as a profound encounter or a complex psychological event, it makes us ask a fundamental question. In this vast, unknown universe, how do we tell the difference between something truly inexplicable and something our own minds are constructing to make sense of the uncanny? What part of this deep dive stands out most to you? What feels most compelling? Or maybe most problematic?